welcome to our free comic book day. And if we could start with you just telling people who you are and what you do.
I'm Kelly Sue DeConnick. I'm a comic book and television writer. And if you know me for anything, you probably know me for Bitch Planet or Captain Marvel.
So what are you working on right now, other than everything?
I am working on I've got my whiteboard over here with, and I'm looking to see what I'm allowed to talk about. I am working on Aquaman still. And that might be what I am allowed to talk about.
Oh, that's good.
Sorry.
No, that's fine. That's fine.
Oh no, Historia. Historia also. Historia is it was announced 2 years ago, I think. We were one of the first Black Label books, but it's me and Phil Jimenez, and we're doing a huge, in every way that you can be huge, Homerian epic centered around Hippolyta that tells the story of the Amazons from the moment that the goddesses conceived of the Amazons to the moment that Steve Trevor lands on the beach. So our story ends where the Wonder Woman story traditionally begins, but it sets out the long history of the Amazons and Hippolyta's rise and fall. And it was pitched as 9 64-page issues. Yeah, so we'll see if we get all the way, but we're working on 2 right now, and I think one is I believe it's gonna come out with the Wonder Woman movie, whenever that is. So, but it's one of the most beautiful things I've ever been associated with. Phil Jimenez is doing the work of his career. He has been the most amazing partner and just phenomenal. There are Easter eggs on every page. It's, oh my gosh, it's just incredible.
That's fantastic. I'm looking forward to it. I'm a huge Wonder Woman fan. I think you know that, but I'm a huge Wonder Woman fan.
Right on.
One of my prized possessions is I have a Wonder Woman sword that is like hefty and beautiful and leather wrapped and the whole nine.
Right. Okay.
So I have questions customers have asked, and then if you have anything that you just randomly want to talk about, that's kind of how we've been doing these interviews.
Okay.
So what is your kind of process when you're writing? Like, you get an idea and go for it, or you get like 10 ideas and pick one, or?
Well, I mean, it sort of depends on what we're doing. But I keep a running list of what I call sweater threads, which are ideas or notions or images or something that I think can either become a story or part of a story. So I keep a list of those, and I go back to that for when I'm looking for new ideas. With existing IP, with like work for hire work, I tend to start by getting to what I think is the crux of the character, and then looking for ways that I can challenge that in order to bring it out, if that makes sense. And as far as the like day-to-day nuts and bolts of writing goes, I used to write exclusively dialogue first, which I'm not the only person who does that, but it is somewhat unusual. But now I can't say that's 100% true anymore. It goes back and forth. But this is Stella. Stella says hello.
Hi, Stella. Bye, Stella.
Bye, Sel. What's up, Sel?
Okay, bye.
All right. But yeah, I'll break down the basics of what needs to happen, and then I go through and write the dialogue. and then break the dialogue down into pages, and the pages down into panels, then prune the dialogue, then write the panel descriptions. So.
Is there any big difference between when you're doing it for your creator-owned stuff versus work for hire? Or do you just write them both the same?
I try to write everything like I own it, you know, but the difference is you don't have to do as much heavy lifting on work for hire, because those worlds are well built out, and it's just, you're just yes-anding, you know. Whereas with your own stuff, you're kind of building whole cloth, which can be both more challenging and more rewarding. So it just kind of depends on what muscle group you're using that day. You know? But you do kind of want to take full ownership of anything that you're writing. Like, be bold. Your editors will rein you in if they need to, you know, but they are invested in having exciting material. They want you to be bold. So, you know, go. I think you're always looking for that capital T truth. So.
Is there any of your projects that you found like the most rewarding of your projects? Is there any one of them that stands out?
You know, it's a little like choosing a favorite child, you know, like I love them all so much. I usually, my joke answer to this question is like my favorite thing is the thing I'm not allowed to work on right now, and my least favorite thing is the thing I have to work on right now. So and that's pretty true. I have a real soft spot in my heart for Pretty Deadly because it is the least known and the least read of my work, but maybe the most personal. But you know, I'm intensely honored to have been part of the team to make Bitch Planet. Captain Marvel will likely be the first line in my obituary, and that's okay. You know, I'm enjoying the hell out of Aquaman. Historia is the most beautiful thing I've ever been a part of. This book is jaw-droppingly gorgeous. Yeah, I was the first woman writer of an ongoing Avengers series in Avengers Assemble. That's pretty neat, you know? And that was a funny book. We had fun. That was a good time, you know? So yeah, I love them. I love them all. There is a single issue of anything that when anybody brings it to me, I'm like, meh. Like, sorry. And even that one, there are things to love about it. There's one shot I did that I'm just like, I did something in there that I don't like. It is what it is.
How speaking of that, how, I don't know what the word is, but so you disagree with something that you're doing, like Marvel or DC or something, and there's something they want you to do and you are absolutely against it. How much say do you have in that when you say, no, I absolutely won't do this? Do they listen? Do you?
Yeah, I mean, there's a funny story of there's a Captain Marvel line that I wrote where it's like, if you ever seen a little girl run so fast she falls down, there's a moment before she hits the ground, a moment before her doubts and fears catch up to her when she flies. In that moment, every little girl flies, right? And I got a note back that said, could we make it every little kid? We don't want to alienate the male reader. And I was like, no. I absolutely believe in the ability of the male reader to cross-identify. I will not do this. I was so ready for a fight, and I like wrote, and I was like, can we get on the phone about this? And and I'm ready to take my name off. I'm ready to quit. I'm like, let's go, right?
Mm-hmm.
I get on the phone, and I'm like, no. And they're like, okay. I was like, oh, all right.
No, okay. That is one of my favorite lines of a comic, because it's true, and I love it.
Thank you.
And
it would not have been as powerful if it was every little kid. It would not.
It wouldn't have been. It wouldn't have been, and it wouldn't have spoken to all the little girls.
Yeah.
And I have spent a lot of my young life falling down, so I love it.
Yeah, it was just like it was the funniest thing, because I was just like, I will quit. I will, blah, 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 blah. And they were like, yeah, okay. So more often than being told, you don't very often get told you have to do something. More likely you want to do something and they're like, maybe not, you know, in which case, not my circus, not my monkeys, you know? So I have a couple of those, but it's not the end of the world. I tried to rewrite Carol's origin, and they were like, no. Like, all right, well, I tried.
Do you find that you can let go of that kind of stuff pretty easily, with the exception of the the one that you're super powerful about? But do you feel like you can go, all right, I can let this one go? And is there,
most of the people I've worked with have been pretty reasonable, you know? Like I can't think of anybody I've ever worked with where I'm like, you know, like I said, no, men can cross-identify, and then they were like, oh yeah, you're right. I'm like, oh, okay, well, great. So, you know, most of the time, and that, like the thing with, I wanted to rewrite her origin in my initial run on Captain Marvel. There's the time travel thing, and she goes back and she witnesses her own creation, right? She witnesses her own origin story. And she's got Helen there with her. And the Captain Marvel origin story is that Marvel and Carol's been kidnapped by Jan Rog. The Psyche Magnetron blows up, and Marvel is trying to rescue Carol, and the Psyche Magnetron explosion transfers his DNA onto her, right? So that's how she gets her powers. What I wanted to happen was Helen is there knowing what's going to happen, and Helen runs into the scene, and Marvel picks up Helen. So Carol, our modern Carol, would have to go grab young Carol Danvers. So when the explosion goes off, her powers would have been transferred from her to her. So she would become the source of her own powers rather than Marvel, which was kind of a deliberately feminist approach. And I was told no on that. And I still think I'm right. I still think it's better. But the argument was there would be a time paradox in her origin, and that would be, like, they didn't like that. And, like, all right, fair. I mean, there's a Psyche Magnetron machine in her origin, too, but...
Pick the battles.
Yeah, not my circus, not my monkeys.
So you try not to fangirl about, like, feminism and how, like, big you are in that and how important you are in that, but no, I
said aw.
Oh. You're kind of a big deal. I don't know how to phrase this question. Obviously you have to be aware of that, and when you're writing, it just feels like that's got to be somewhat of a heavy burden for you as well, that there is this other part of you that's not just your writing, that you are known for, you're respected for, you're looked up to for. Does that ever, how does that feel as far as when you're writing? And
well, I mean, I sort of pursue my interests in my writing, right? And so the feminism comes into the writing not because I'm trying to make pamphlets or educational materials, but because these are themes and questions that are important to me, that I return to try to solve and sort for myself.
Mm-hmm,
Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
It's never, I'm never like, I'm gonna make propaganda, you know? I'm never like, I'm gonna make a feminist pamphlet. I'm rather like, this makes me mad, and I feel like this character would also be made mad by this, or this character wouldn't see it, and when we see the character not see it, that hurts us, you know, or whatever. It's just, it's always from a point of interest rather than any, I'm not trying to do persuasive writing, ever. I don't think it's on me to put answers into the world. I think if I had answers, I should have been a politician. I don't have answers, I have questions. That's why I'm an artist. And so that tends to be how I approach it. But you know, I write about my passions, and then also, and then as a human being, I have things I feel strongly about, and that I will advocate for. But those do feel like two different hats. Yeah, I mean, I guess sometimes, like when I took Aquaman, it was like, well, this is a weird fit for my brand, whatever that is, you know? But I felt like I had some things to say about the character, and so there was no reason not to do it. It was something to explore. I mean, that was really interesting because, like, I try to practice, you can't control how things are read, right? Other people's opinions of you are not your business. You have to stay out of that. But I did like had one thing with Aquaman get under my skin, and I'm still defensive about it, like, clearly, because I'm bringing it up, right? And
talk about it, or is that
no? It's it was a critique of there's a thing in the second arc where we find out that Mara had gotten so angry, that Mara and Arthur have a fight, like just a relationship fight, you know, an argument. But she's so angered by, let me set it up. She is almost Medea. She has given up her world, her history, her everything to be with this man, right? And that is okay. He is a good man, and he is devoted to her. But he is also a man whose mother abandoned him as a child, and whose father took him to the water to look for his mother every day, as though that were healthy, right? And his power set is he can call every creature in the ocean back to him except his mom, right? Like, I mean, it's like, dude has mommy issues. Okay. And I think his terror would be being, you know, his mother left him to attend to her duties, right? And Mara tells Arthur, I'm pregnant. And I think, and this gives him pause because he has a great deal of responsibilities. And what if he were to do to his child the same thing his mother did to him? It's terrifying. And so when she tells him this, they are in Atlantis, which is a place that has never been good to Arthur. Like, it is, you know, his birthright and his home and, you know, everything supposedly. But Atlantis has been cruel to Arthur at every opportunity. So it's in this place where he doesn't feel safe, you know? And he's like, I need to go home to Amnesty Bay, to my home, to just kind of digest this and think about this. And she's like, motherfucker, you cannot leave me here like this. I gave up everything for you. And I'm sorry, you may have to bleep me there. All right, it's my way.
At the end of the night.
Okay. And she explodes. So she's this rage, and the force of her rage literally kills him. Now, spoilers, the book's called Aquaman. He doesn't really die, okay? But that's it's that sort of very human, very grounded interaction, but because these are superhuman characters, everything is bigger. So where that would be a completely normal, like, based in reality kind of thing that could happen between two people, but instead, you know, she'd throw a plate, you know, like that's anyway, it was I got this critique that I was writing the hysterical female because she was pregnant. And it was like, no, I'm not, that wasn't at all related to her pregnancy. And this critique came from a man too, which was like, I have a temper. I had a temper when I was pregnant. I have a temper when I'm not pregnant. It doesn't, you know, Mara broke a dude's arm because he touched her. She's like, and she wasn't pregnant, and I didn't write that. Like, she is established as a hawkish, fierce woman, you know? And like, there was nothing that wasn't hysterical pregnancy. That was, well, hysterical pregnancy is a different thing. That was just anger, you know? So anyway, that rubbed me so wrong. Because it came from a dude and was like, and also because it hit me in that place where it was like, oh, you're not, that's not feminist. You're writing about women doing bad things, you know?
Getting mansplained about feminism?
He didn't, I mean, he wasn't even talking to me. This is truly none of my business. It was a review I should not have read. So if he had been talking to me about it, it would have been a whole other thing. I am in the wrong here because his opinions are not my business, and I shouldn't, but man, it just, that one got to me. And I think that's where I take it pretty much in stride, the accusations that I've, you know, personally ruined comics, or that my work is attempting to be feminist propaganda or whatever. I know those things to not be true. I wish I had that kind of power. You know? I don't, and if I did, I would use it for good, but I don't have that kind of power, you know? You know, all that stuff I managed to take in stride. But the sort of, that's the closest thing I can come up with to sort of feeling like I haven't been being scolded for being not a good feminist, you know?
Well, I think you're awesome. Just on a side note, trying really hard not to fangirl out. But so the other side of that, when I talk about it being heavy, is the people that do read your stuff and don't think it's propaganda, but feel seen for the first time. There's that great scene in there's that great scene towards the end of Lady Planet, as I will call it. I'm so sorry.
No, that's totally fine. I'm just going to close my door because the dogs are barking.
Sure.
Okay.
Where I totally forgot their names. I'm terrible at names.
It's Penny and Cam in the shower?
No.
Sometimes strong as a strong. Okay, all right.
This is towards the end where they're basically trying to brainwash her, and they say you're going to see your truest, most, what you want the most, and it's her. And I'm a big girl, and I got lots of sass, and I saw that, and I was just like, oh, that's so representative that yes, we do not all have this ideal. And they tried to break her, and they tried to make that her ideal, and it didn't work. And so when I talk about it being a heavy responsibility, like, people see your stuff and go, I'm seen. And for some women, that is the first time that they've ever been seen.
That is a gift. That is, I feel so humbled and so blessed to be a part of that. The coolest thing about that moment, and that's in issue 3, which is Penny's standalone issue. And the coolest thing about that moment for me is, they're trying to tell her, her crime isn't her size. Her crime is she doesn't hate herself for her size. Like, she's supposed to hate herself for that. And that she doesn't is what they don't understand. Like, she's like, no, there's nothing wrong with me. I look like my grandma, who was amazing, right? And like her crime is that she loves herself. And the only difference when she looks in the mirror is her in the mirror is laughing. That's the only difference. And the only way you can tell that is the ha-ha. Clayton did this. The ha-ha-ha cuts off at the edge of the mirror. So she's not. Yeah, it's one of those like little details that I just absolutely adore. Because
I read that as her like, ha ha ha, suck it.
Yeah, no, it's like her idealized self is the only difference is just she can laugh at them. That's it.
So, speaking of inspiration and all of that sort of stuff, what do you tell someone that wants to get into writing and wants to kind of follow in those footsteps and move forward with it?
I tell them that they can and they should. That, there's room. There's room for all of our stories. The hardest, it takes courage. People think the ideas are the problem, or they think creativity is magic or whatever. No, it's not. It's labor. You just, you have to, it's not a magic job. It's a hard job. You have to do the work. You have to have the crappy drafts. You have to continue to work on them until they get good. You have to find the courage to suck first. And that is really, really hard. Disappointing yourself is really hard. The story I always tell them is like, people think they get obsessive about ideas, and they think like, they're like, I have an idea. I'll give you my idea and you write it. I'm like, no. Ideas are cheap. There are, you have hundreds of ideas a day. You just have to learn to recognize them, right? That's that sweater thread list. The hard part is putting in the work. The hard part is showing up and making the idea into something that asks an interesting question, that gets to something that you have mixed feelings about, right? Like, that's the hard part. The hard part is making the idea into art. And it's hard because the idea in your head is perfect. It's a perfect idea. It's brilliant. It's neat. When you take it out of your head and you put it in front of your face, well, now you have some perspective on it. And that perspective means you can see the problems. You can see the holes. You can see the work you're going to need to put in. And that is disheartening. And that moment sucks. But you know what? If I die with an imperfect book, I'm a writer. If I die with a perfect idea, I'm a dreamer. So this is the really important part, is finding the courage to do this, to take it out of your head and put it on the page. And then it's just showing up. Then it's just, can you work hard? And there's craft and and there's a million ways to learn all that. But what I can't teach you is courage. I can just encourage you. That was terrible. I can cheer for you. I can tell you I am excited for you to do it. I can tell you there is room here at this table for you. But I can't give you the courage to do it. You have to find that.
That's awesome. Can you talk about like how the industry as a whole has changed over the last decade or so?
Yeah, I mean, when I started, there had been notable and visible women writers in our history, but most of them were not working anymore. Only Gail was the most prominent and visible. And she was kind of all by her lonesome, you know. I'm sure I'm erasing someone in saying that, and that's not my intention. But as far as like super high profile, because there was Gail, you know. And then in the time, the story I always tell is doing the New York Comic Con Women of Marvel panel. And the first time I did the Women of Marvel panel at New York Comic Con, we were in a small room. We still had a great crowd, but we were in a small room, and I was one of the I think I was the only creative on the stage. In fact, I know I was. And when I say creative, I only mean as we traditionally identify those roles: the writer, the artist, the colorist, and the penciler, and possibly the inker. Like, those are the roles that we think of as the creative roles. In actuality, all of the roles are creative, but regardless, let's say those are the high profile creative roles. I was the only woman on that panel in one of the high profile creative roles. The last time I did the Women of Marvel panel, there were so many women creatives on the stage, there was literally nowhere for me to sit. I sat on the edge of the dais. And that's great. That said, nobody sit down. We're nowhere near parity, and we are not done. So it's gotten better, but with the better has also come the backlash. So that's hard sometimes, because it's not our intention to take anything away from anybody. But I think people feel like if we have something for us, it must be taking something from them.
It's not a pie.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's, hold on just a second. My daughter's trying to call me. Give me 1 second.
Of course. Okay, cool. I had paused recording because I didn't know what she was going to say.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I was actually just getting ready to wrap it up because I know you have a lot of things, and I know there's a lot of things on your plate today. So I just wanted to say thank you for taking your time, and thank you for being a part of our first virtual Free Comic Day. And if I'm to be honest, I really hope this is the last one we ever have to do. I am not this person. I am much more, hello, I would like to, well, I mean, we've met each other, but like, hello, welcome to my store, and 3,000 people coming through and a big party. My one-on-one type of skills are not necessarily as good. So
I think you're delightful. And that was a really enjoyable interview. And I love your store and what you do and how welcoming you are to everyone in your community. And thank you.
Thank you. But hopefully everything with Tallulah is good, and I'll let you get to it. Thank you again, and I look forward to Historia. As soon as you said that, I remembered seeing the solicitations for it and being like, Black Label with this, oh, it's gonna be pretty. So
I'm gonna send you some pages. You can't share them,
sure,
but just between you and I.
Okay.
Just so you can see, when you see these pages, you will understand why the book has taken so long. Too, was it's like, oh, okay, yes, you should take your time, Phil. So.
Well, sometimes you can either have things really good or really quick, and you don't get to have both at one time. So
yeah, this is just so phenomenally rich. It's unbelievable.
Yay, I'm super excited. Have a good day. Thank you again.
All right, thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.